What's going on, folks? MC is in the house. All right, I'm doing a Be Live broadcast. Seems to be the easiest for now, on the fly. Most of my studio stuff is set up at the home, my home office. So, give you guys a couple of seconds, minutes maybe to jump on. Should be a pretty interesting live broadcast today. Looking forward to the triggerings. So do me a favor, when you guys pop on, I see the number of people that are watching starting to climb. Just do me a favor, let me know that you could see me and hear me. The Mack attack. All right, what's going on? Big Scott Price in the house. What's up, Chris? K. Zala says, oh shit, my break's over. All right, so loud and clear. Good. Good to hear. All right. What's up, Martin? What's up, Big Mike? What's up, Daniel? What's up, Rich? All right, so we're going to Ricardo in the house. We're going to piss a lot of people off today. I say we because you guys are in it with me, right? and I want to talk about obviously this. I don't know why it's controversial, but it is. But this ridiculousness that is the Mack attack, right? Mack Beggs. So Mack Beggs, those of you that don't know, and I think you pretty much do if you're here watching this, because that's what we're planning on talking about. I just had to do a live video on this because there's just so much fun to be had. Mack Beggs is a young lady who thinks she's a man or thinks she's a boy. And she just recently won the Class 6A Girls State Wrestling Championship in Texas. And she is a 17-year-old from Euless Trinity High School. She finished her season, I believe, 56-0, and I think about 2 years ago started taking hormones so that she could look like more of a boy. So, a couple things about this right off the bat. Now, I hate when people say, that, she is transitioning into a boy, right? She identifies as a boy, so she's transitioning into a boy. To use the verb transition implies somehow that the end result of this is going to be she's going to be a boy, right? Sort of like there's going to be some process that at the end of which is it's just going to like pop out of something. She's a boy. We know that's not the case. We know that what she's going to do is she's going to take hormone therapy. She's going to be on testosterone and various other hormones to increase the secondary sex characteristics to sort of look more masculine. Okay. When she gets to the end of her journey, there is not going to be this, okay, now you're a boy situation, right? The physiology is set. It's almost like you can't even, you don't even have to debate this. This isn't something that's up for, debate. What you'll hear a lot of the progressives say, right? The people who just want to accept everybody for everything, they'll say, well, there's a difference between sex and gender. And no, there isn't. Not in this context. Biologists know this. There's a great screenshot or screen capture of, I don't know, who is it? Johns Hopkins University, likening, parents allowing their children to identify as being transgender as a form of child abuse, because it's not legitimate, it's not accurate, it's not authentic. To say it's not real, you can get into a semantical situation there, because is it real? Well, yeah, this whole situation is real. We're fucking dealing with it. But is a young lady saying that she is a boy Is that authentic? Is it accurate? Is it biologically possible? And the answer is no. Now, there are some people that are born intersexed, right? Hermaphrodites, right? The Rock used to call people Hermes on wrestling back in the day. That's what he was talking about. But these are individuals who are born with genitalia from both sexes, right? And a lot of times either the doctor, the family, later on maybe the individual sort of made the decision as to where, which direction they wanted to move in. A big Hollywood rumor that Jamie Lee Curtis is one of them. Whatever, shit worked out in her case. But that's not what we're talking about, okay? We almost legitimize, what these, people who consider themselves transgender, what they're going through when we say that somehow it's connected to people who are actually born with the genitalia from two different sexes, okay? It's just not the case. Transgenders, so my position on transgenders, people, transgenders, do you call them? Is that a noun? Transgenders? Whatever the case is, my opinion is, listen, do whatever you want. Okay, do whatever you want. I don't think it's ever been an issue for the majority of Americans, and maybe I'm being naive in saying that, but if you want to be a man who's dressed as a woman, or if you want to be a woman who's dressed as a man, listen, I don't give a fuck. Right? We all know people who it doesn't matter whether they're a man or woman. It's like, for our intents and purposes, the way that we are connected to these individuals, it's completely irrelevant what that is. The problem is that, you get those people wanting to now not only have the freedom to pursue the identity they want to pursue, but they also want all of the concessions from society to accommodate that decision, okay? So it leads us to Mack, what's this girl's name? Mack Beggs, right? Mack Beggs. So this young lady, I don't know this young lady. I don't know much about this young lady aside from what is available, on Google, the majority of which came to light from from her winning the state wrestling championship, but the whole issue is, when we look at people who identify as transgender in the in the medical community, it's accepted as a psychological condition, right? Now, sure, I think in the latest DSM, they've sort of recategorized it. So, in layman's terms, it's not crazy. It's just different, right? But it very much is a disorder, and that's my my operating sort of opinion of it. My position on what it is. But when you look at this young lady, a couple of things right off the bat. Okay, number one, her grandmother is her legal guardian. Okay, her parents, I believe, were at the wrestling tournament, and they had the Mack Attack shirts on, right? But the grandmother is the legal guardian. Okay, so obviously we're not sort of far into this. We're not deep into who this young lady is before we start seeing some sort of flags being raised. Now, the transitioning began 2 years ago. Now, she loves wrestling, obviously, an avid wrestler. But she also wants to live as a young man. So leading into, because I don't really know much about her personal life aside from what I had said, but leading into now this situation that we're dealing with, right? Her winning the state title. You have a young lady who wants to wrestle, but she also wants to be a boy. Well, unfortunately, it is allowed in her situation, right? So let's dive into that for a little bit, because I did what research I could on it. She is taking a hormone therapy. She's on testosterone, right? That's why she is muscular. That's why she's hairy. That's why she's strong as fuck, right? That's why she's 56-0, right? But it is allowed, by the UIL, which is the University Interscholastic League, some shit like that, that they're regulated by down in Texas. She's allowed to use the testosterone because it is prescribed by a doctor, right? So a representative from the UIL was actually interviewed at the state tournament when all of this attention is being given to Mack Beggs. And, he had even said, I actually want to quote him. I got this down. Okay. Now, this is from a UIL Deputy Executive Director, Jamie Harrison. He says, the laws allow for a student who is being administered steroids or testosterone by a physician to compete. That, simply put, means, now this is a quote from the rep from the UIL, that, simply put, means that our reading of the law means that the UIL cannot declare a student ineligible for the use of performance-enhancing drugs if they are doing so under the exception vested in the law. Harrison said the UIL staff is more than willing to work with lawmakers to review that law and consider whether or not that law needs to be reviewed and considered for change. Okay, so what winds up happening is you enter into this scenario now whereby, it might just very be that, this is the case that allows the law to sort of be updated and reflect the current criteria by which it's being applied, right, or the circumstances under which it's being applied. So the UIL is probably liable for a lawsuit if they were to say Mack Beggs can't compete, right, can't wrestle because she's on testosterone, right? She's juicing for the most part. And they might be liable legally because the laws that they follow say that a student who is being prescribed testosterone by a doctor, is eligible to compete. Well, the law also states in Texas that you have to compete under the gender which you were born, right? Which your birth certificate, designates. Mack Beggs is a girl. She has to compete with the girls. So the whole thing is, there are people now who are saying, oh, well, she should be allowed. She wanted to compete with the boys. She should be allowed to compete with the boys. And you can't blame her for having to compete against the girls because she wanted to compete against the boys. All right. She should not be allowed to compete with the boys. Why should she not be allowed to compete with the boys? Because these are one of those situations where everybody's going to see that it's fine, or everybody's going to think it's fine when she gets, washed, in the boys divisions. But then what happens when you have the Fallon Fox scenario? What happens when you have the teenage boy who has already started to experience, puberty, when he now identifies as a girl? Because what the fuck is the criteria for that, right? I just feel like being a girl. Now you have a student who not only can compete with the girls, but can potentially dominate the girls, scale this up through, his academic journey. Is he qualified now for a Division I scholarship? Do we now fill female Division I academic scholarships, which could be worth, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars? Right? Do we now allow male wrestlers to just, listen, say you're a girl so you can get into this school and have everything paid for? Is that what we're exposing ourselves to? When the criteria, the prerequisite is simply a choice that's made in somebody's head, and there's no sort of criteria that's anchored or married to reality, right? Any physiological change. Obviously, it doesn't take much to see how this shit goes sideways real fucking quickly when we start accommodating people who have psychological issues, okay? So now, do I think Mack Beggs thinks that she's a boy? Sure. I don't care. It almost doesn't even matter. But is she transitioning into being a boy? No, she's not transitioning into a boy. Is she a boy trapped in a girl's body? That is fucking retarded. Okay, we're talking about fucking Dungeons and Dragons if we're talking about the magic that would be required to make that shit happen, right? But when you say she's transitioning to a boy, all she's going to ever do is wind up, because we've seen this before, you wind up having two types of individuals. You have these women who turn into these these almost like male LARPers. They almost look like men. You know, some of them shave their head, they got the beards, but then they talk, right? When they talk, they all sound like a 70-year-old Jewish woman, right? They all have this high pitched, sort of raspy, just, you know, chain smoker type voice that you know is a female voice that's just amplified by testosterone, right? You look at a lot of female bodybuilders, right? A lot of high-level female bodybuilders who are absolutely on the sauce. They sound the same way. So you have that type of transitioning girl into boy transgender. But then you also have the ones that look like, you know, they wind up looking like these bull dyke short order cooks that are working in some fucking diner. They look like greasy women with mustaches. You know, at no point do men, in any sort of replicatable sense, think that they're men. Like we automatically know as soon as they talk. Some of them, I'll be honest, if you don't hear them say anything, like, yeah, that's a dude. But as soon as they say something or just their mannerisms, it's like, holy fuck, what the fuck is going on there? Immediately, like, you know, your radar's being triggered, right? But when we're looking at a young lady like this, like Mack Beggs, who obviously has issues, who obviously is you know, making these decisions that are going to affect her entire life moving forward, I'm completely willing and able, not even that it's my position to have this sort of opinion, but if she wants to be a boy, okay. But you can't fucking wrestle then, all right? If you wanted to transition, wait until you're done with fucking high school. If you wanted to sort of take your testosterone because you think that one day you're going to be a boy, that's fine. But why is it now? Like, how do you fucking celebrate winning a state championship? Okay, let's just say, you know, all right, you won the state championship. You yourself, right? And I'm speaking to Mack Beggs. You know, you yourself said you wanted to wrestle the boys, so you already concede. You accept, along with your support system, right? Her grandmother, I think her parents, a lot of her supporters. You know, they all concede. Oh, well, she wanted to wrestle with the boys, so you all know that it's unfair, right? So you all know that it's unfair, yet you did it anyway. And this is one of the very common aspects of these people. You know, it is all about them. It's not about fairness. It's not about liberty. It's not about freedom. It's not about leave me alone and let me be who I want to be. It's no, I want to sort of make decisions that allow me to force what I want on everybody else. And I have the support network from this fucking PC-plagued society to sort of create the leverage to pull it off, right? And that's where, you know, this whole thing has gotten fucked up, right? So what do we got going on here? Give me, let me see. Let me see some comments. All right. So Richard Bowman says, couldn't hack being a good woman, so it will settle for being a bad man. You know, it's one of those things too, like, listen, like, she is still a teenager, I think 15, 16 years old. I'm not trying to, you know, to bash this girl. I'm not trying to bully this girl, but at some point, you know, like, reality needs to fucking take hold of the conversation. It's like, listen, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but if your feelings are going to be hurt in order to sort of maintain some, like, level of decency, you know, then so be it, you know, because these are decisions that Mack Beggs has made. It's very easy, too, to sort of pigeonhole when guys like me, or when people like me in general say things like this, to just dismiss it as, oh, this guy's homophobic, this guy's this. There was a tranny that put a comment on my profile picture on the MC page today, and she had said, you know, she called me number one, a fat, ugly fuck, which, you know, debatable, you know, whatever. She said, you don't fucking know anything about transgenders, transgender people, and I'm an expert. I've been struggling my whole life, and this is like that. So my reply was, well, yeah, clearly you're the best example of why transgender people aren't insane. And she like deleted everything. She blocked me. I should have fucking screen captured it, but I missed opportunity. But this is what you deal with. You deal with just this sort of maniacal detachment from reality, this delusion that is being reinforced, even incentivized, I would argue, by a society that has allowed all of its standards of decency to just fucking run amok. Right? We had some other fucking schmuck. Big Irwin, what's going on, brother? Good to see you. We had some other schmuck on the MC page yesterday that was saying, she's not on steroids. She's on testosterone, and that's a hormone. It's like, look, you fucking idiot. Okay, there is nobody who's actually involved in the situation that denies that there is an advantage to doing, what Mack Beggs had done. Mack Beggs, Mack. Let's just say Mack. What Miss Mack, Miss Mack. Miss Mack, what she went through. Nobody denies that it was an advantage. There was another quote here. I got to find this. This is another coach who was there. I got to find this. This is. Beggs was born a girl. He has three of his parents. It's not a fucking boy. Holy shit! Like, listen, you want to change your name to Mac? I don't know what her name was before. Michelle, Mindy, fucking mammary glands. I don't know what it was, but there is, I'll call you whatever you want, but the he, she, like, no, you don't get to fucking just own that and change that. Oh, yeah. There was, I gotta find this. I have a screen capture of one of the articles, and there was a coach. I gotta fucking find it. Where is this? Jesus Christ. Oh, okay. This coach believes the UIL should allow Beggs to wrestle boys, but not because of her use of testosterone. Quote, and this is another coach from another school. If that's what he wants to do, let him do it, she said, noting that she was not able to speak publicly because of her school district's policy, meaning it's the policy of the school district to not allow coaches comment on individual, students. But then she says, this is the quote from the coach, any girl can go and lift weights and be as muscular as Mac is and be just as strong. No, you fucking moron. That is not possible. You cannot, and even if, let's say you were to take a young lady and put her through some sort of strength and conditioning program that it greatly increased her strength and athletic ability, that does not undermine the fact that the substance that Miss Mack was using did exactly the same fucking thing without all the weightlifting. And to add to it, if you were to take that program that made that other young lady strong and put Miss Mack on it while she was also using testosterone, she would still be a level stronger than whatever the other young lady was. So to dismiss this as, it's just, there was a wrestler, a young lady who I think won the state tournament at a different weight class, said something, it's, obviously being in support of Miss Mack, was saying, wrestling has nothing to do with strength. It's all about technique. And, if Mack Beggs wants to compete, and is winning, it's because, he is a better wrestler. Like, bullshit. We all know this is bullshit. These are children. We're supposed to, as adults, be helping these children prepare themselves for reality. Yet the fucking gibberish that's getting that's getting supported out there is making everything worse, because now these young people are growing up deluded, and eventually they graduate into these positions of significance where they're actually decision makers in a lot of these processes, you know? All right, so Keith had asked, how do the performance-enhancing drugs keep it from being disqualified? I had mentioned that earlier. Apparently, it's the district policy to let any athlete who is competing while using testosterone prescribed from a physician is allowed to compete, cannot be disqualified. So that is the loophole where Miss Mack sort of fell into. A lot of people, we should just let her wrestle the boys. We should let her, no, you can't let her wrestle the boys, because she's not a boy, number one, which kind of should be like the end of the conversation. But beyond that, and I raised this idea earlier, what happens when a boy wants to wrestle in the girls division? Because he, identifies as a girl. And now this guy is getting a Division I scholarship. He's getting whatever sort of amenities and benefits are afforded to specific categories of people. Are we allowed to just identify as being part of the category, that we want to sort of have access to the benefits for? This goes sideways very, very quickly, What else we got? Brian Wilton in the house. He says, why the hell do we need to try and understand? If one makes a decision to fly in the face of society norms, it does not obligate the rest of the world to understand. And I agree completely. Well put, sir. It is up to the individual to navigate their reality. One of my favorite sayings is, it's easier to fix the boat than it is to calm the sea. So you have these people that want to be, considered the opposite sex of what they are. Like, all right, do whatever you want to do. I recall a time that Montel Williams, who I'm not a tremendous fan of, for this story even less so, he was giving an interview about the transgender individuals using the bathrooms of their identified gender, and he was using an example of a man who identified as a woman, who looked like a fucking woman. Like, you would not be able to tell. Admittedly, maybe if he was naked, but aside from that, you wouldn't be able to tell. And Montel Williams asked, he said, well, are you telling me that she's supposed to go into a men's bathroom? And right off the bat, you're like, hey, you know what? You got a point there. But this is the whole thing. What can't be lost on somebody, the almost inclination to concede that, yeah, well, maybe that guy who looks like a woman, maybe she should use the women's bathroom. But the whole thing is, because functionally it works, right? If you look so much like a woman that you could pull off using a woman's bathroom and there's no harm done, then it is what it is. Because what's the alternative? We have to check, everybody's gender before they go into a bathroom. Obviously, it's getting to a functional level is the only thing that matters. And right now, it's very dysfunctional because you have people who are completely adamantly against people of the opposite genders using their bathrooms. The scenario that is, I think, very fairly brought up, but often brought up is, and I'm the father of 4 children. Do I want my daughter, right, because that's the go-to, do I want my daughter using a bathroom, let's say when she's 8, 9 years old, with a 30-year-old, 40-year-old man in drag, right? And the answer is no. And when somebody wants me to defend that, it almost, I want to remind them, well, isn't the burden of proof on you to suggest somehow that what you're suggesting is more appropriate or more functional? Because I'm just going with the very easily understood sort of natural acceptance of a difference in genders, right? So my position, the people who think men should be using men's bathrooms and women should be using women's bathrooms, is the default, Okay, so the people who have these new ideas, like that is the burden of proof is on you, and I have yet to hear the explanation that validates a 40-year-old man in drag, going into a women's bathroom. Right? There's so many great these social experiment videos of men going into women's bathrooms. And it's so funny because sometimes you'll see them go in and it's like men in drag, like that's what they do. And they'll go in and some of the women are fucking freaking out, like get the fuck out, hitting them with their purse and stuff. But then you'll find these progressive, right? These super just liberal, and you could almost peg them. These yoga granola, hairy armpit ladies. And they're like, you could tell a little put off. But then you could tell them forcing themselves to act like everything's normal, and and try to act like no, and like, what are you fucking kidding me? There's a dude dressed like a woman in the fucking women's bathroom. You know you want him out of the fucking bathroom. Just say it. But nobody keeps it real anymore. Just us. We do. Frank Windle in the house. He says, I'm biased. I don't believe in women wrestling or forfeits counting on career wins. In this Mack Attack deal, it's sensationalizing the term transgender. Well, and that is one of the unfortunate circumstances. Like, we can't actually even get to the point where we fix all of the weakness that is going on in society because we've got to deal with this bullshit, which logically makes absolutely no fucking sense, right? So the women wrestling, I'm a little torn. I think you should do whatever you're going to do. The whole thing is when we start telling women that they shouldn't, aspire to be wives and mothers, that's when we start, fucking things up. My wife, she's home taking care of the 4 kids right now, but she's also a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. She had asked one time, she said, what would you think if I wanted to fight MMA? And I said, listen, I don't think it's a good idea at all. I don't think, that it's appropriate for you. I don't want a wife who gets punched in the fucking face regularly. But all that being said, I'm never going to regulate, what I think you should want to sort of do as a sort of internal decision. Like, if you don't want to, like the whole thing, like with being together, like my wife and I understand, like I'm never going to keep you here. You're never going to keep me here. We're here because we want to be here. That's the decision we've made. But when you have people who are telling young ladies that, it's somehow repressive or archaic and obsolete to aspire to be somebody's wife, to aspire to be a child's mother, to aspire to, be a homemaker when you grow up, like that is where we have to draw the line. Now, if women wrestling is a step in that direction, then listen, we can discuss that because nothing's set in stone, but the whole thing is, I think we have a functional model of what works that's readily available to us when we just look at our history, what worked on our way here. But now we're at this era where there's such a sort of a surplus of voices, sort of finding their way into the conversation, that function has almost taken a back seat. And we're also safe, secure, and provided for, that we don't really have to test these things, on the very, very sharp edge of reality. How do you tell whether or not, somebody who's transgender is dysfunctional in nature? Well, you take a bunch of them and, you leave repopulating the human race up to them. You're going to have a fucking problem. Right? Or you have those fucking, you guys ever see that video where the woman who, looked like the greasy guy with the mustache wound up having a baby and then breastfed the baby, and it looked like a greasy woman with a mustache breast? It was just fucking wrong. And now it's easy to say, well, what's so wrong about it? Why does it offend you? Well, it's not a matter of, offending me in a sense of what is, appropriate for, dealing with one another, for interactions. It's really, this is a model that is not going to fucking work. This is somebody's opinion as to how we should, move forward as a people. And that's not the way any of this works. As much as we'd like to think, we are not smarter than nature. We are not smarter than the universe, and the universe will have its balance, right? Go to one of these third world countries where they barely have a pot to piss in, barely have food going around, and see if any of them have time to start saying that they identify as another gender. You don't see this in these other countries. Why? Because they don't have time for the fucking idiocy that being so powerful, like the United States is and first world countries are, that affords us. All right? We have so much time to sort of get into trouble that these are the things that we're dealing with because of it. All right. So, I mean, is this child abuse when you're telling your young child that no, it's true, you actually are part of another gender? Well, let's define what's child abuse. One of the things I hate, sort of reducing this communication to, are individual terms, because these are these little hinges that swing these big doors, and sometimes just a slight difference in understanding of what a term means creates this chasm in any attempt to understand each other's positions. So I always think it's important to sort of flesh these things out and not reduce yourself to just an individual term, because that's where shit goes sideways. So is it child abuse? Well, in what sense? Are you starving your child? No. Are you beating your child to the point of injury? No. Are you allowing your child to internalize delusion? Yes. But it's hard to say that it's child abuse when we have people who are the parents of devout, or people who are devoutly religious people who have a whole worldview and a sort of metaphysical framework that they operate under, and it affects who they are and what they do, that has as little proof as the whole gender issue provides. So I'm hesitant to just dismiss it as, oh, this is child abuse, because we'd have to call a lot of other things child abuse too if we're calling this child abuse. We still live in a country where we have religious figures come and as a ceremony circumcise newborn boys, in the home. I think that's fucking sick, but it's also part of their culture. And, like if we're going to cross that bridge to battling these things, yeah, we could do that. But I think we enter into that, or we at least create a little bit of maybe hypocrisy, right? If we're not willing to get excited about that, but we want to call this child abuse. I think it needs to be dealt with the way that I deal with all these things that I think are completely dysfunctional, and are going to lead to our demise if done on a big enough scale, and that is mocking them. They need to be mocked. I created that meme the other day, mock the weak, giving you alternative words and synonyms for mock and weak. And I think people need to look at that and understand when we say mock the weak, that is a way for us to sort of corral people within our tribe to remaining functional in their approach to living, right? When we start to sort of make fun of people for doing things that are, that is ineffective, that is wrong in terms of what's going to provide for us, allow us to survive as a tribe, the mocking is a reminder to them, where the tribe is. But understand that if you remove people's ability to mock one another, then what winds up happening is you only allow an interjection, or you only allow an engagement to occur much further down the line, where it might not be verbal communication that is necessary, right? It might be violence. It might be, expulsion from the tribe. The consequences become much greater when you remove the ability at the earlier stages for individuals to have that communication, that freedom to mock the people who are being basically dysfunctional, right? David Pelican says, in Israel, the feminism has gotten so bad, the women can't find husbands. Look it up. I believe you. We're at a point now where you have these women who think that they are so strong that somehow their role has changed. Now, there is a big difference between being a strong woman and being a strong man. At no point does one sort of go over the other. Just because you don't have children doesn't mean that you are still not a woman. It doesn't mean that you are still not almost expected by reality to empower and reinforce those formulas that serve the tribe well, right? So when you have these women who, I'm independent, I don't need a man. All right, you lonely bitch. Wind up with no fucking kids. If everybody thought like you, by the way, it'd be the end of fucking society, right? So it's just dysfunctional and it's selfish. That's another thing where, where a lot of these people sort of go sideways is they don't see how fucking selfish it is, right? To not participate in those formulas that allows the tribe to prosper, right? If everybody wanted to be a fucking tranny, we wouldn't have America in 2017. So for you individuals that just want to sort of remove yourself from everything that works just to accommodate you, and then you want everybody to accept it, that is the fucking height of selfishness, right? You know how fucking hard it is for individuals. I'll use myself as an example. There's so many things that I would like to do during the course of a day, but I know running that formula is dysfunctional for me individually. And if I am dysfunctional, my ability to play my role in my family with my wife and children becomes dysfunctional. Scaled up, if everybody were to act like that, the entire society would be dysfunctional. So there are concessions that we make every single day to accommodate the sort of formulas that allow us to prosper, the formulas that allow us to move forward. Right? But when you have these people that not only want to sort of be dysfunctional in their individual identities, but then somehow want to sort of be plugged in, right, and accepted as not being, a degenerate, not being a saboteur, like this is where we have to fucking draw the line. Now, I'm just saying mock the weak, right? That's all I'm saying. Scaled up, you remove that ability, it becomes a lot fucking more dangerous, a lot more violent, and things come to a head a hell of a lot faster, Hail, Adrian. Good to see you. All right, what's up, Dallas? What's up, Gary? All right. What else we got here? Let me get some questions from you guys. You know me. I fucking ramble all the time. Who's this fucking hand job? So Brandon says, look, an alpha male with beard preaching to us. Hooray for being innovative. Like, why the cuntiness? Like, it's so unnecessary. Like, ooh, zinger, you got me good there. She shut down my fucking live feed because of that fucking hand job. I don't even know what to fucking tell you. This is the thing. You get these people like, listen, I understand that everybody's different. Everybody has different preferences. Everybody, has different ways to sort of navigate their lives. But the whole thing is, the people that always talk about everybody should be getting along, everybody should be part of the same fucking tribe and everything. You're the ones that can't seem to fucking respect any alliance between identities. That's the fucking kicker of it all. Like, I started this whole thing by saying, like, listen, if you're a guy that wants to dress like a woman, listen, that's on you. I don't give a fuck. It doesn't change my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids, my ability to teach, martial arts in my school. Certainly doesn't affect my, my ability to podcast and do these things. But the whole thing is, that's not where you stop. I already said, do what you got to do. But no, I have to like you. I have to accept you. I have to say I like you. I have to change the rules. So nothing that is legislated makes any distinction between the two of us. And this is now where you're just fucking going crazy. Like the easy thing is, look at the NBA, right? So primarily black guys. Think about, what if there was a legitimate campaign backed by legislators, legitimate campaign to have the NBA racially represent or be reflected by the same percentages that we see in American society, right? 60% white, 10, 15% black, whatever the case is. Everybody immediately would understand how fucking ridiculous that is. Why? Because number one, we're not emotionally charged by that situation. That situation does not trigger us so emotionally that we become irrational, right? And we can think about it critically, right? Where we are capable of thinking about it critically, and we say, well, no, if like who do I want in the NBA? I want the best basketball players. Like why would I want to have a basketball player that isn't as good as everybody else there to be there just because of a race, a completely disconnected trait or attribute, right? But what's the difference between that argument and the fucking engineer argument, the computer programmer argument? Like, why do there need to be more women scientists? Why do there need to be more, black computer programmers? Why can't we just say whoever's good enough to get there, let them get there? This is the thing that fucking drives me crazy. All right, what else is going on? All right, David Pelican says 5 decades of unchecked feminism is why. Yeah, absolutely. There's a certain point where, people stop, people get tired of winning. That's the whole thing. And they're saying, you know what? I'm too good at this. I'm too fortunate to be this successful, and and they start feeling this guilt because they're told by the lessers, that they should feel guilty. And it goes on long enough to where reminding these people who have that they should feel guilty about having starts to become a successful strategy, right? The formula starts to become more and more effective, right? But at no point should that formula becoming more effective ever be conflated or confused with it being more accurate, right? With it reflecting reality more accurately, right? So when you see these people, like you have the social justice warriors like Zuckerberg, right? Mark Zuckerberg. Did you guys see that video the other day that's talking about the 300-acre estate he has in Hawaii? Hawaii does not have 300 acres to give to one motherfucker. But here's a social justice warrior, right? 300 fucking acres, right? Going through back channels and different companies to sort of buy land from people, land that's passed down through legacy, right? But yet he's the first one to sit there and espouse, how we all need to improve ourselves. And he's worried about all these social justice warrior fucking, goals and missions. Yet he's a fucking piece of shit. 300 acres. Now, I'm of the mindset, like, listen, if somebody's going to be a piece of shit, then they have the right to be a piece of shit as long as they don't take away other people's rights to do what they want to do. But it's the hypocrisy, that I'm pointing out. I'm not necessarily mad at his ability, to buy that land. I'm mad that he bought it. I think that he should be, mocked, right, by people for the hypocrisy, to the point where culturally the morality is created so that people would not make those decisions, right? All right. Richard Bowman says, so MC, on the issue of the weak trying to truck with the strong, I imagine if you're aware of this movement, of called Swole Left, the communists that are hitting the gym in order to fight people like us in the streets. I try to explain to someone that you can hit the gym and the ring all you want, but the absence of a proper mindset, as well as the relationship and willingness towards violence, accounts for absolutely nothing. Interested in your take, perhaps something to catalog for later. Well, I have heard about it, and a lot of people sent me a video clip of some guy that's doing like free training for leftists, and like, okay, again, this is what I see. You see a whole contingent of people who have lost an election, who are finding themselves on the losing end of discourse pretty significantly, are trying to initiate violence in the absence of the ability to actually gain any headway through discourse, and are being reminded now, or shown for the first time, taught, if you will, that they're not even capable of that. So all of the steps that they've lost so far, you have these people that are now looking to empower themselves in that latest step. You don't see the, how do we make sure that we don't lose another election? How do we make sure, that we're able to allow our ideas to win in discourse? No, you see a reinforcement. Oh yeah, we'll learn how to fight better, and we'll learn how to do more violence. Like there's no gym that's going to prepare you for what, the violence of the world, what the violence of the world has in store for you. There's no sparring that's going to take care of that. I mean, if anybody's ever been locked up, right? And I have the fortunate of a memory of being locked up for a couple of months when I was a teenager, and I don't think you have to be locked up to agree and understand what I'm saying, but you go there and there are a lot of alpha dudes in there, and they're not the biggest guys. They're not the guys that could personally, individually do the most violence. A lot of times it is mindset. A lot of times it's support. A lot of times it's, following a code that everybody understands allows life to go on. And very rarely is it just the biggest, strongest guy. So, I liken it to how in Hollywood, a lot of times you'll have a movement, right? An effort to sort of make characters more masculine. But what they do is they make them more violent, and somehow making them more violent means more masculine. And those of us that are a little bit more aware of what masculinity is, we know that masculinity can't just be reduced to violence. We know that there's more to it, right? It's one of the things how I look at these like liberal women and their support for the trannies, like men trying to be women, right? Like Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner now. Like, how are you so comfortable reducing your identity, reducing what a woman is to secondary, sex characteristics? Like, why? Like, how is it that you don't see not only an accuracy in it, but, how is that not demeaning to you? To look at people who think that, because as men, we know that a woman can take all the hormones she wants. She's not going to be a man. We always know she's going to be a woman who's on the sauce, and that's just the way it is, but you have these people that just, they're willing to sort of bypass anything that I honestly feel they know to be true just to be right, I've been in plenty of debates where, I'm speaking to people who are much more intelligent than I am, much more articulate than I am. And a lot of times, I'll tell them, like, listen, you're fucking smart as hell, but it's a good thing I'm right? Because logic leads me to where I'm at. And if you can't sort of break down and sort of attack what I'm doing and saying logically, then, everything else is just fucking sophistry. I put that article up the other day, what's the difference between sophistry and philosophy? Well, you have people who are very, very intelligent, but I would say are probably weak in their mindsets and their cultures, in their understanding of reality, and they're intellectually dishonest, right? So you have these people who are always looking to win a debate. I'm very rarely looking to win a debate. And if I tell myself that, all right, I have to win this debate, then I am acknowledging that I'm not trying to find any truth. I'm not trying to improve my positions. I'm not trying to get any better. I'm not trying to gain any power. I'm just trying to beat another person in an argument. And that is probably the lowest form of discourse, in my opinion. But you have people who are, just looking to be winners of arguments. And it's like, how are we ever supposed to connect and understand one another and actually have a conversation if that's what everybody's out to get, and do? Oh, yeah, yeah. All right, guys. I don't know what the fuck else to talk about. Miss Mary Mack, 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 all dressed in black, black, black. All right, what's going on here? Alex, what's up, brother? Brandon says logic is good, but everybody seems to be arguing with you, Brandon. What are you talking about? Brandon's trolling. Brandon, I ain't mad at you. I ain't mad at you. All right, so we have Ricardo brings up PressureCon 2. Remember, PressureCon 2 is in July 21st, 22nd. It's going to be in the Poconos. Those of you that are members of the PressureCon, the pressureproject.com, you guys know that you're going to be getting some information about that shortly. If you are not a member of the Pressure Project members.com, you are not going to be able to attend PressureCon, but I think you guys know that already. But more information will come out. I got to do a better job of promoting these things to people. All right. Tim asks, is it true that Sam Hyde was your student at one point? Yes. Yeah, he was. Sam's a good dude. Out of his fucking mind. Good dude. All right, this looks like worth talking about. Honorable men. This is Mike Dunson. He says, honorable men gain strength from other honorable men. Males have been reduced in society to effeminate masses of jelly. At the same time, society has artificially put females on top. My motto, they ain't getting me. And I think there's a lot of truth there. When we talk about honor, right? Honor is the sort of currency of virtue, in tribe. It's very, and I talk about this a lot, but it's very important to understand that you could do what's honorable in your tribe and have another tribe look at what you're doing as something that would be dishonorable in theirs. And I'm always advocating for what is functional. I'm always advocating for what works. When I talk about abortion, excuse me, when I talk about abortion, it's a very similar, outlook. I think if a woman wants to kill her child while the child is still in her body, that's on you. But two things. Number one, I would always hope that the people in my tribe would have a better option than that. I would always hope that the people who find themselves in those predicaments that other people would, opt for abortions in, I would hope that my tribe has either done enough to prevent or support or just provide options for those individuals so that abortion didn't have to be an option. But along with that, I will still call it, women killing their children, women killing babies. And we could debate that all day long, but when you look at, and I don't know how the fuck I got into abortion, but when you look at, a woman in some states, I believe it is legal under certain circumstances to terminate a pregnancy, when the child is viable, meaning the child can live and survive outside of the woman's body. But under certain circumstances, it is allowed to terminate the baby. That's a problem, right? But it's only a problem if it's somebody in my tribe. It's only a problem if it's somebody, who I give a fuck about, I think it's a little disingenuous to say that, we could bomb countries and we could drop, fucking nukes on countries over certain sort of conflicts and our roles in these conflicts, but then say that no woman should ever, kill a baby. Like, listen, I think we got to bomb some people. I think people could, women could get abortions, but I'm just saying, let's just call it for what it is. Because maybe if we start, calling things as they are, maybe we could sort of start creating an impetus for dealing with these things. All right, what else is going on? Jason, what's going on, brother? Good to see you. Matt Campbell, my man, 50 grand. He says, this is a quote from Two on Tom. There is no honor without tribe. Without tribe, there can be no expression of honor, and no shame can be cast, which is why many are loners. The very avoidance of belonging to a tribe is often a form of cowardice. Fucking awesome. I'm so glad you shared that. I talked about when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I was a tremendous fan of Wolverine, right? And Wolverine, a lot of people love Wolverine, but Wolverine was, along with other things, he was a loner, right? He was always considered, somebody who just marched to the beat of his own drum. He didn't give a fuck about anybody, did what he wanted. And I was a very, I had a lot of sort of isolated, times in my adolescence. And I very much identified, with that sort of identity, right? It felt good. It resonated with me. And as I got older, I started realizing that one of the reasons why I wasn't sort of maintaining, even creating these tribal connections is because it would require me to have a certain sense of accountability. It would require me to sort of abide by a sort of collective understanding of what was appropriate, a collective morality. And I agree with that quote completely. One of the hardest things about being part of a tribe is that you can't just do what's best for you all the time. I recall one of these students that left my academy once, and when he left, I didn't understand why he was leaving. Not that I had the authority or even inclination to make him not leave. But what he said was, well, at the end of the day, we all have to do, what's best for us, right? And I looked at him and I said, I guess so, because I didn't even know what the fuck to tell him, like this is a guy that, 24 hours before I'd fucking give him money. I'd change his tire. I'd give him a place to stay if he needed it. I would get into a fight on his behalf. I would do anything for him. But to hear that, it's like, yeah, well, you're the guy that shouldn't be here then, Richard Bowman asks, MC, you're obviously an incredibly busy man with your many prolific projects, but have you considered maybe doing a limited and relevant speaking tour to get the message of power out there to counter the weak speak? The gods know Portland or Little Stalingrad could certainly stand some organized counterpoints to stymie all the leftist red flag waving agendas. I'm not opposed to it. I'll be honest. I'm not opposed to it. I obviously, I've done a lot of public speaking over the years, but admittedly, a lot of it is, in tribe. A lot of it is, in front of the audiences that I've created, that I've generated, whether it be a business, function, or, one of my promotion ceremonies at my school where I do the State of the Jungle addresses, or a live video like this. I'm definitely not opposed to it. It's just that when I see the things that guys like Milo and Richard Spencer are going through, there's a certain point where it's like, I don't want to help everybody. I don't want to help everybody. I want people to help themselves. And ultimately, I want to be left alone. That's the goal of all this, right? Create this discourse and go sort of out of the tribe just to sort of champion those ideas that allow everybody to eventually get back to the point where we are functionally independent. When we talk about the leftist politicians that start espousing, gun control, directives, or, even, this whole debacle with the transgenders in bathrooms and things like. See, the whole thing is, if we never say anything, because there is a whole a component of people I would consider on our side of the equation who don't believe in voting, who don't believe in participating in any political endeavors, and it's like, all right, so eventually you're going to have to deal with this in certain situations. I'm just opting to deal with it, at the point of discourse. I want to interject and intercede before it starts becoming violent. I don't want to deal with the 40-year-old tranny going into the girl's bathroom while my daughter's in it. I'd rather have an opinion that I go publicly and share, and maybe sort of inspire other conversations that would be connected to it, during the legislation process, before these things happen. So everybody is going to deal with reality, whether they like it or not. I'm just really trying to sort of champion those ideas that allow things to happen, proactively rather than reactively, Chad Fuller says Steve McNallen has some new material coming out on YouTube. Pretty stoked. Awesome. I didn't know that. I'm happy to hear it. I want to check that out. All right. What else is going on? Tom Kilkenny, what's up, brother, man? Good to see you. Matt Johnson says, MC, you should do a college tour just to trigger the masses. Also, their Berkeley tactics wouldn't work on us wouldn't work on us. We like violence. And you know what? I don't want to beat up people that are, so beat upable. Like, I got so many things I'd rather be doing than fucking curb stomping some fucking progressive nut job. And that's the dilemma. You get guys like Milo and Richard Spencer now, I think, is doing a college tour. Like, this is their mission right now. Their mission is to trigger people and to create these situations. And I think there's value in it. I think there's value because it sort of puts a snapshot of where we all are. It's like, holy shit, these people are at Berkeley, arguably the birthplace of free speech, and they're creating a riot because somebody they don't agree with is going to speak at Berkeley. It's fucking insanity, So I think there's value in it. I don't want to be that guy, I don't want to be that guy. I've always said, like, listen, if I remember when I went to the MPI conference in 2015, I remember there was a whole bunch of these protesters, the Antifa protesters, and I was naive. I honestly never even saw them before. I never even, I had no idea who these people were. And I went up to a bunch of them and I was talking to them, and they didn't know how to fucking handle it because I was being civil. I was like, well, what are you guys standing for? What are you protesting for? They're like, oh, are you a white supremacist? And, and I'm like, why am I a white supremacist? And, I just didn't understand how they didn't have a formula to actually have a conversation if that opportunity presented itself. So it just goes to show, and it's very apparent that these people don't want understanding. These people don't want to get along. These people don't want to find common ground. These people don't want to sort of have these sort of functional alliances. They just want everybody to be like them. They just want a virtue signal. They want that sort of in-tribe pat on the back that they get when they do these things that aren't based, in creating alliance. And I don't have fucking time for that. I remember I was saying, like, listen, these guys can do whatever they want. Anybody touches me, they're getting fucking washed. Like, that's just the way it is. And I look at these people that go to these events and they're getting hit with eggs and, they're just walking straight. And, like, I don't want to be in a situation because I'll concede it's arguable that these people that are getting shit thrown at them, like, maybe it is better in the long term, to not engage these people violently. But I don't want to be in a position where not answering violence with violence is the best option, right? All right, guys. I've been going over an hour. I'm going to end it there. You guys are fucking awesome. I appreciate you guys spending time and hanging out. Just to give you guys a little reminder, this is my very slow typing style. Damn! The PressureProjectMembers.com is the website for members. We have a PressureCon coming up, talking about public speaking. I will be there too, and Tom will be there. I'm working on getting some other guests and some other functions to make this one special, a little bit different from last year. It's probably going to be a little bit bigger. Going to have maybe some different sort of breakout sessions and stations, but it's all in design stage. But if you just want to hang out with a lot of like-minded men and don't want to be preoccupied with all of this, trolling fucking Nanciness, PressureCon is a great opportunity to do that. The people who were there last year, who I'll be reaching out to for some testimonials, will attest to that. But that's all the way in July. For now, the PressureProjectMembers.com is the website to get more information and to have access to everything that's available there. All right, so check that out, guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out. And as always, brothers, pressure to power.